Hello, everyone. This is your host of the CEO Next Door, Mike Mayer. With me today is my co-host, as always, Donovan Morrison, and our special guest is Sasha Yablonovsky. Did I say that right, Sasha?
Excellent. Excellent.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, Today we are going to learn a lot about Sasha. So why don't we start with your quick elevator pitch of who you are, Sasha, and what you're currently up to.
Thank you. Nice to see both of you again. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I am an immigrant, a mother, a business owner. I had an interesting upbringing that we will discuss today, I'm sure, but currently I own a company that's called Loanspark. It's the most excited I've ever been about having a job, being a business owner, and having this company. And Loanspark, what we do is we partner with B2B companies that want to offer business lending to their business customers in order to ensure their financial health, stability, and in order to generate additional revenues for themselves, but also to contribute to the stability and economic growth of the communities all over the country, really. So we're standing that up for companies now.
Awesome. Do you work with companies in all industries or do you just focus in on a few?
There's several industries, actually. I mean, anybody can become a business lender with our program, but our focus is banks. We expand their lending offerings beyond of what they're just able to offer. Payments companies that are able to then offer lending on top of payment services to their business customers. Accounting firms as well, who are, working with businesses, understand their cash flows, can then recommend and offer lending for them as well. And any sort of like a SaaS vertical platform, whether it's project management, success, or churn management for SMBs or business owners, they're also able to become a lending resource.
Awesome. And what makes Loanspark different? Kind of what's your unique value that you're bringing to the table?
We're actually the only ones right now in the space that are doing business lending as a service the way we're doing it. There are companies that are up and coming, so I'm very aware of that we were first to market with the offering that we have because we have over 100 different programs for lending and funding options. Our approval rates are in the 70s versus the industry standard, which is below 30, because we have customized and diversified so many offerings. We're one of the few that have cannabis businesses that we can support. So long story short, there's a lot of companies that offer one or two funding products or limited funding. We're the only ones in the marketplace that do this at the robust, all-inclusive level. But I'm very aware of the competition and how they're building and trying to catch up. So, job of the business owner, constantly trying to outpace those that are trying to catch up.
Totally.
Sure, of course. So what are since it sounds like you're offering many different funding avenues, what are some of the more unique ones that Loanspark offers?
So cannabis, we have a lot of cannabis funds that are available for businesses that are either farmers and growers or, dispensaries or retail kind of brick and mortar shops. We also have great e-commerce loans for e-commerce business owners. You could be a sole proprietor or not, as long as you're selling your products anywhere on any kind of e-com channel, we're able to get you funded within 24 hours. Super competitive rates. The reason why we got into this is actually protect the business owner from predatory brokers and lenders out there, scamming them and offering terms that are not favorable. So that was really the emphasis of like why we built Loanspark. It started with let's protect the business owner because the lending process is complicated unnecessarily. You have to be a financial genius to get through the terms and figure out all the paperwork. So we streamed all that out. But the impact wasn't going to be enough if we're just working individually with a business owner, which is why we decided to involve the B2B community to also serve as the guardian and as the protector for the business owner so these SMB owners can thrive and not drown in financial burdens. So that's really what we do and what we focus on.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, as both Mike and I having run small businesses and having both, I think, at one point or another, either considered or had taken on lending or financial support, certainly understand how challenging that can be to navigate. There are so many different vehicles and offerings and people reaching out to try and help. It's tough to kind of see the trees through the forest. So certainly
Agree.
appreciate that simplified process that it sounds like Loanspark brings to the table.
Correct.
So on this show, we really like to dive into how the summation of different life experiences, both personal and professional, have led you to where you're at today. And from my understanding, Loanspark is actually one of your first, if not the first entrepreneurial venture. Just from chatting a little bit before this recording, it sounds like you had a little bit of a different non-entrepreneurial upbringing. And that's, I think, why I was really looking forward to speaking today. Usually on this show, we have folks who come from entrepreneurial families, who have been starting side businesses and hustles since they were 5 years old and have had 40 businesses over the course of their career, which is awesome. But your background is a little bit different. So would love to just hear about your upbringing, your family dynamic, and we'll kind of would love to learn how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah. So I realized a couple of years ago that one does not have to be born an entrepreneur to become one. So, and I get this question a lot. My upbringing, I was born and raised in former USSR. For those of you that may know, communist country, of course, where entrepreneurship is not a thing. The government owns and runs everything unless you're the mafia. So not something that I was brought up was to think about the freedom of even being able to own a business. Raised, in poverty, of course, like all the stories you hear. I was a little on the luckier side. My dad was in the military, so we had a little bit different kind of things going on, but still struggled all the time. And so I was a teenager when I moved to America. And being brought up in a communist place, it's kind of, women, either nurses or they go into education. So it's, it's one of those things where you don't think about what else you could do. My parents wanted the freedom of raising my sister and I in a place where we are able to broaden our horizons, which is one of the reasons that they were really eager to immigrate to the United States. So when I moved here, we were incredibly poor. And my parents had to work multiple jobs. My dad refused to be on welfare. That's not why we moved to the US. We moved here for the opportunities. So, they worked multiple jobs. My mom was a registered nurse when we were in USSR, and she, was doing whatever she can to learn English and make money. My dad was a colonel in the military, and he was scrubbing toilets at gas stations. So they were really hustling to make it work. And my dad's thought was that he wanted to be a business owner and entrepreneur. And eventually he became a very successful one. But to me, it was always crazy. Like, who in their right mind wants an unpredictable paycheck? Because when you're starting your business,
Right.
you don't know where the money's coming from. You're just winging it, right? So I'm like, this is crazy. Who wants that kind of life? The 24/7 kind of, roller coaster of today I'm successful, tomorrow I feel like a failure. I
Yep.
watched him go through that, and I just thought, that's nuts. Great for you, muzzle tov, daddy. Like, not for me at all. And then
What did he start? What was his
he was
profession?
in home nursing care.
Okay.
So, and I was just like, not for me. And I knew people that were business owners, and every time I kind of chuckled, like, oh my God, these crazy people. I loved doing the corporate thing. I'll tell you why. It was like you take a vacation, the world doesn't end. You have a predictable paycheck. Now, we know layoffs happen, and I've been part of layoffs in 2008. But like, you think the company is doing well until it isn't. And that someone's there responsible, like the heavy burden, someone's cutting the check. I liked the predictability of a paycheck. Commissions, bonuses, I know not so much. Like, you have to work for that. And I love working hard. but like salary is there, right? So I never thought of myself as a business owner. I never wanted that kind of a life. I turned 45 last week, actually. And it
Happy
was
birthday.
not until, thank you. And it wasn't until I was like 42 that I really started to consider it. And I started considering it because Michael Barnett, the founder of Loanspark, approached me about doing this together and me being his co-founder and co-CEO. And he approached me because twofold. I had the experience. In my career growth in my corporate, I've taken a very large company public. I got to ring a NASDAQ bell. It was fantastic. My face was all over Times Square. I mean,
Wow.
I'd love to do that again. That was a cool experience. In my corporate career, I was part of the Madoff litigation team that was trying to recover the money from that Ponzi scheme. And I was one of the original founding members of the team that was on the technology side, trying to figure out how to do that electronic discovery process because no one knew how to do it, just the size of it. So I had all of these interesting strategic execution, operational sales experiences and a very strong background. And Michael was already a multiple time founder, but he approached me and he shared with me the idea of Loanspark. And I was terrified to even consider it because it came with all the things I just said I feared and made fun of. It's, emotional roller coaster. You talk to founders, there's so much going on. You're constantly like on edge. You want to make sure it's going well. And I was just like, this is not for me. But the mission behind Loanspark, it really spoke to me. It was different. It's not in an industry that's oversaturated. I saw what my dad, my friends, other family members went through as founders, and knowing the fact that more than 80% of business owners go out of business because of cash flow and funding challenges within the first few years. All of that went to, I can do this. Like, I think I am mature enough to attempt this and try this because I've done so many things on the corporate side. It was like, do you know what I haven't done before? Build something from scratch and really owned it. So to me, it almost felt like the right time, right place, and a natural progression. And that's it. So really, for the first time, I considered it 3 years ago. And I got to tell you, I've never been happier. I'm
That's
glad I didn't do
thoughtful.
it sooner. Like
Mhm.
now was the right time for me. Also, I'm glad I'm not doing it alone because having this co-founder with me that's knowledgeable and has done it before has been great. For me personally, I am not one of those founders that can do it on her own. There's founders that like need to do it with, and there's founders that can just do it on their own. I'm definitely happy I'm not doing it alone.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's really, in my opinion, important and vital to find a complementary co-founder who has very shared, but also different views. So it really opens up the floor for brainstorming, innovation, and progression when you're
Yep.
able to have some healthy, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say discourse, but healthy conversations with opposing views. Because it can lead to solutions that neither party would have thought of independently to significant business problems.
Yeah.
So totally agree on that front. So I'm curious, from your upbringing in a, as you said, historically very non-entrepreneurial setting in Russia, were there any lessons or takeaways that you've been able to incorporate in running Loanspark from your upbringing?
That's a good question. I think when you grow up not wealthy or not even middle class, just, in kind of dire circumstance,
Hmm.
and you see, hopefully you have the kind of parents that are, fighting tooth and nail to provide for their family regardless of the circumstance. And that was my upbringing. You see the power of grit and persistence. And that's how I was brought up anyways. it's the survival of the fittest, the way I was brought up. And then when you immigrate to a different country, if you don't immigrate already being set up and money waiting for you and the big support system, which we didn't have any of those things, you continue to implement the grit and the persistence that you were raised with. And I think all of these things train you for the necessary to launch and run a company. When you think about, and you guys meet with all sorts of CEOs all the time, so you know this better than anybody. The CEOs or founders I meet with, one of the things that all of us seem to have in common is this persistence, this not giving up, not being afraid to pivot when you need to, because business ownership requires a lot of pivoting, right? Like you start out one way, you realize it's not working, you have to have the right kind of know-how to then assess and move on in order for the survival of your employees, your company, right, yourself. And so that's what I would say from my upbringing really helped. And I think the other thing is I was a daughter of a military man. Whether you are in Russian military or American military, military trains you to be very persistent and very regimented. And my father was very regimented and he expected the same of me. I was his firstborn, right? So the upbringing was regiment. We had fun, of course, we did things, but you have a rule book you follow. You learn to be consistent in your approach. Although I love to procrastinate, I'll admit, I've learned how to procrastinate at the time that's allowable because it's been instilled in me that you have to keep moving like a shark. You got to swim or you die, right? So I think that upbringing of a military father, just my immigration story, being brought up in USSR, all of these things in those ways that I just shared contributed to the discipline I have now as a business owner.
It's always helpful to have a co-founder like Donovan was saying that has, similar skills, similar perspective, but also some differing.
Yes.
Where do you fit in with your partner as far as what are you good at? What are you bringing to the table? And then what does your partner bring to the table?
Yeah, that's great. So especially in a relationship where you have two founders or multiple founders and multiple roles within the company, we happen to be both co-CEOs. We have a very strict delineation where we do play to our strengths. So Michael is the visionary. He came up with the idea. He understands the future strategy of the organization. And he also serves as our head of product, IT, and security.
Okay.
He also serves as the head of the teams that manage the borrowers, the borrower experience, and all of that, right? As well as the relationship with the investors, those that provide funding so we can help the businesses. I, on my side, because of my experience, what I bring to the table, I run operations for the company, marketing for the company, all of the business development. So I work through which B2B companies should be onboarded for our company, HR, legal, and I manage any execution of anything that's needed. So for an example, Michael wakes up in the middle of the night and he texts me and he is like, this is for the morning. Here's an idea I had, right? Visionaries, they dream big. It's big, audacious goals and it's great. And then I decipher what he says, and then I determine when we should be putting that into plan, how quickly, in what ways, and how to make it happen. Now, if I completely don't agree with the idea, we will get on the call and I will say, Michael, walk me through this, help me understand, right? Of course, like healthy debates happen between founders, and we have that too with mutual respect. But so then I take his vision, his idea, and I implement it, I execute it. And that's how we roll. So like that's how we fit together.
When did you launch the business and how's it going?
Yeah.
How many employees? Like, tell us more about the company.
Yeah, of course. So we launched the business 2 years ago formally. We onboarded our first customer less than a year ago. We have over 30 customers now. We have funded thousands of business owners. We're really excited about that. Our growth has been huge just because no one really offers what we offer. Employees, we just brought on a team of 6. We're at about 30. We're growing. And what else? Well, so that's the progress.
Your lenders, are they all banks? I'm not sure. Are they
Great
individuals?
question.
Yeah.
So our lenders are banks, alternative lenders, boutique lenders, and we do have private money lenders as well. So private family money.
So just coming from an area where I'm not as familiar with the types of lenders, what types of groups would fall under the boutique and alternative lender categories?
Alternative lenders are financial entities that are able to offer products that are not federally regulated. So I think a lot of people have heard of On Deck. On Deck Capital is one of the largest lenders out there. So they are an alternative lender. They're not a bank. They structure their own products that they're able to offer. Boutique lenders are smaller alternative lenders that might offer only 1 or 2 products, but they're so unique that it can fall into like a business that might be declined everywhere else due to what they do, the nature of what they do, or the revenues might be very inconsistent. A boutique lender might be able to structure an offering that is just right for that niche type of a business owner and their business model. And then, of course, private family money is wealthy families throughout the country that diversify their investments, not just in stock portfolios and real estate, but they invest in other businesses in order to help them grow.
Okay.
Got it. What are some typical customer profiles? Who is, we're going to have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to the podcast. Who would be the best kind of fit for your platform? Size, type, what they're looking to do, how much money they need. Give us an idea of common scenarios.
Of course. So for Loanspark, our partners are any companies or individual people that work with other businesses. So you're essentially referring those businesses to us, and on your behalf, we serve as the lender. So that's how that would work. The size of the company is actually irrelevant. We have 3 different tiers. So we can work with a really large payments company like Global Payments, and they can offer to their businesses lending, or we can work with a very small company. For an example, like you guys, you work with a lot of businesses. They might be looking for funding. You can become essentially a partner, and on your behalf, we will fund those businesses and you grow your revenue that way. Now, on the flip side of that, what kind of businesses you as a business service, what kind of SMBs would be the ones that would be applying for loans? It's really anybody with a business. So we work with all sorts of borrowers.
Are you a private label lending marketplace? Is that the
Correct.
right term? Yeah.
Yeah, we're a private label business lending as a service offering. Correct.
Excellent. Okay. That makes it much easier to understand now.
Yes.
So
I don't use those terms because people don't usually know those terms. So yes.
I'll put it into layman's terms. I'm an accounting firm, and I want to be able to offer my customers, who might be doctors, dentists, plumbers, lawyers, I want to offer them money, lending services. My accounting firm will private label Loanspark to offer those services, offer those funds.
Correct.
Understood.
And we do everything on their behalf, on the accounting firm's behalf. Right. They don't have to train their people. They don't need the technology. They don't need licenses. Like, we have all of that.
So what have been some of your favorite success stories of businesses that you've worked with?
My favorite, oh my gosh, there's so many, but this one always sticks out. My favorite story is this woman, and this is literally why we do this. So this woman and her husband, they owned a restaurant on the East Coast, and they're immigrant family. They've done this for over 20 years. They've had this restaurant. The husband ended up cheating on her with a much, much younger woman, and he ended up leaving her with all the restaurant debt and just left and took off, literally. And she didn't want, and this is their livelihood, right? But he was just like, I don't care, I'm out of here. So she's alone. She's now supposed to manage this restaurant. She's never done it on her own. She's never had to manage the financials for the restaurant. Her husband was in charge of that. She has 30 employees. She doesn't want them to lose their job. And she needed funding to hire more people to help her run it, right? Because she lost a key component. So through one of our white label partners, she came in as a borrower, right? And boy, did we fight tooth and nail. And we got her the funding she needed. She kept her business. She got a chance to upgrade all of the equipment. She got to hire 5 new staff members. They're thriving. We're still in touch. But that like really, I guess as a woman also, but in general, divorce happens, what, 51% of the time out there now. I mean, this really warmed my heart that we were able to help her in that way. The other one that always comes to mind is the business owner was a deaf mute. He needed funding. None of the brokers or lenders he tried were willing to take the time to properly communicate with him because they found it impossible to properly communicate the terms. They were getting frustrated that they couldn't communicate. And our team, and again, this is what we do at the core of what we want to do. We did get him funding. We were able to, in a secure way, communicate with him all of the terms so he makes the right decision. Our team was very patient. We figured out a way to communicate with him through a portal in the system. So all of the, PII information stays, so it's not over email. All of these things, which is what we do anyways, but he got funding and he was so touched. Like he got on the video with us just in sign language, like express, and he was tearing up because he had a disability and no one wanted to take the time.
Wow.
His loan wasn't large enough, and most people in the industry were like, oh, my commission is nothing on this. I'm not going to spend weeks trying to figure this out. So yeah, those two are like always stick out for me, but there's so many stories like that.
What are the
Yeah.
typical loan sizes?
$100,000 is the average right now. If you take commercial real estate out of it, those of course are outliers. Those are typically in the tens of the millions.
Can you give us an idea on the average terms?
Gosh, honestly, it's all over the place. Yeah, I can give you average terms. I mean, most of the loans are about 5 years in length to pay back. Rates vary day to day, it's the market, but we offer pretty competitive ones that start some as low as 2%. And as far as when they get funding, I'm looking down because I actually have our current rates in front of me here. As far as funding, typically we're able to get funding for anybody on average within 2 to 3 weeks. They have money in their account. But like I said, there's outliers. SBA loans, as everybody knows, are notoriously much longer and more complicated to get. Commercial real estate is usually 30 to 45 days, depending on the size of a project. But yeah, that's how I would average that out.
So Sasha, looking back with your dad starting the in-home nursing business, was that something that you were involved in? Like, did you help out?
Not at all. And I'll
Not at
tell
all,
you
okay.
to my dad's dismay, when he was building the companies he was building, he of course wanted his children to take over. And my sister, I have a sister, she's very much involved in running and helping with the companies. And because I was so passionate about never having my own business, I kept turning it down, and I did. And it's interesting because my dad and I talk about this now, and it's, you started your own thing, you didn't do my thing. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm really passionate about my own thing, and he understands it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how it worked out.
So do you think there's ever a future where you would get involved with the family businesses?
I don't think so. No, I'm really happy with Loanspark and what I'm doing here. My dad, my sister, and the rest of their ginormous 400, I mean, it's a massive company, 400 employees. They're doing a phenomenal job there. So no, I applaud them. I appreciate more than ever now what my dad had to go through to stand up. He actually has 4 companies, his companies. And yes, so my hats off to him and all the other business owners there. But no, not for me. The family business is not for me.
Throughout I know it's been a kind of a short-lived time frame being an entrepreneur. During that time, are there any lessons that you've learned, major mistakes, things that if you had to go back and do it again, you would do it differently?
Yeah, there isn't just one. There's so many little things. Thankfully, in this entrepreneurship journey of mine, there weren't big things. But the little things, I think the biggest thing is being over optimistic on financial projections, being under optimistic on financial projections. It's a delicate dance. We're bootstrapped as a company. We haven't been taking investors yet, and it's one of those things where it's a lot of pressure when you bootstrap. So it's the financial things. I think more specifically in general, I would say that. It was more on a people side. We've made a couple of not great early hires. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until after the person starts working with you or for you. And it just reinforced the fact that your first hires at the company need to be kind of your strongest ones because you need the right people by your side to scale. But since then, we've brought on an excellent team of people. I think that it's the stuff inside your head. We've been consciously, Michael and I, what a lot of founders are failing at or have failed at is we have all this stuff inside our head. If you don't properly share it with your employees, then you become the bottleneck. And a lot of the times, founders are either afraid to share a lot of it or they don't even know to share it. So we kind of have a policy in the company where ask everything, even if you think it's highly inappropriate, to pull everything out of us as much as you can so we're not bottlenecks. If we can't answer it, we'll be honest with you and tell you, sorry, that's not something that we can share with our employees at this time. There's very few of that, by the way, because when you're building and scaling together, you just all need to be adults on the same page. But I think on the people side, it's being able to share information. It's not you have to kind of minimize the fears as a founder that you have and take calculated risks more, those kind of things. And financials are always fun. The projections it's a great, delicate, constant balancing act.
What's been the best day of the business so far? Do you remember?
I do. There were two. Okay, us signing our first customer was a big deal. Like that first contract, you're like, yes, it's happening.
Yeah.
And making your first dollar.
Mhm.
We became revenue positive fairly quickly because that's just the nature of the business. So making your first dollar is like, oh my God, this is possible. It's happening. Those I think are like, the big ones. Those are the big ones.
So earlier in the conversation, you alluded to a big hesitancy of entering entrepreneurship of yours was the unpredictability, instability, and just overall craziness of starting and running a business. How, now that you are in it, have you coped with that? How do you stay sane both in a professional setting, and then how are you able to kind of can you turn it off? And if so, how do you do that?
Turning it off is really hard. Here's how I stay sane. So I've actually learned it because in my previous role at Career Builder, I was a president and I ran a massive organization and it was like a $500 million company. And it gives you, it's not yours, but it might as well be at that point because you're responsible to all of the investors. And you learn how to, it took me a while, you learn how to manage the stuff that will bog you down. So I took that with me into Loanspark. Here's what I do. I'm blessed enough to have a dog. If you don't, it's okay. You have to force yourself to do what I'm about to tell you I do. I'm blessed enough to have a dog. No matter what's happening in my day, I know that that dog will need a mid-afternoon walk. And let's be honest, I have to often remind myself that I'm not saving lives here. What I do is important, but very few of us out there are actually saving lives. We feel like we are, but let's like peel that onion. I will take my 15, 20-minute walk with my dog in the middle of the day. I will not bring my cell phone with me. That 15, 20 minutes around the block, I get fresh air. I don't care if it's winter, summer, if it's raining or not. If it's raining, it's a shorter walk with an umbrella. But that's what I do. Am I turned off? No, I'm thinking about my job that entire time. But the fact that I'm not on my phone, I'm not in front of my screen, and I'm walking and I'm breathing fresh air and my dog is next to me, it's a little bit of a reset. It helps. I try very hard to block off 30 minutes a day for lunch. I'd like to tell you I'm super awesome at taking that time. I'd be lying, and that's not what my personality is about. If anybody knows me, they know pretty straightforward and honest too much, too honest. But I try and I have it blocked off. And sometimes there are weeks I succeed and I will walk away from my desk and I will have a lunch. Do I stop thinking about my job during that time? No, of course not. I'm thinking about all the things I have to do and I haven't done and I should have thought about earlier, but I forgot. But I try to step away. So those are my kind of tricks, right? And then in the evening, I have two sons. And so in the evening, I force a hard stop to do dinner as a family or even individually. But then, of course, I go back to work. So it does break it up for me that way. Oh, and there's a last trick. Okay, listen, this might be irresponsible because a lot of founders are like, get up at 5 and work out and do like deep work. And I'm not that person. I'm not that founder. I will not take calls before 9 a.m. It's a personal rule of mine. I don't think anything super critical happens. Now, I used to have jobs where I had to manage Wall Street, kind of market, and I had to work with customers who were in Europe. So I did not have the luxury to not have calls before 9, but now I can. So these few things, they allow me breathing room, like you said, Donovan, right? That gives me a chance to maintain sanity.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think there are the odd occasions when something needs to get done immediately, but that's where a lot of times, like, I'll turn off my notifications after 6 p.m. or so, because if anything's coming in at night, I would say 999 times out of 1,000, it will be fine to be addressed
It will be okay.
9 a.m.,
Yeah.
8 a.m., 9 a.m. the next morning. And it makes such a big
completely agree.
difference. And I know myself that even with that, I'll still be clicking into Slack, email, whatever, checking stuff many times. So it's, I think trying to maintain those little things that you can do to maintain some sanity are really important.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
So
we
what's
ahead,
next
Don.
for Loanspark, for you and for Loanspark?
Growth and scale and more growth and scale. And, we're in this unique, it's funny because I don't know, like the tenure of the, businesses or business owners you talk to, like we're in this place where we're still learning and building and we're just now starting to scale. So like truly fast, quickly scale. So every day is a new day and a new challenge and a new win. And it's what's next for us is, world domination, obviously, because I need to build the biggest moat around business lending as a service before others come into the space as heavy as we're in it now. And so that's next. It's always playing the defense is important as a business owner, but it's scaling, it's growing, it's building out our team. It's getting our crap together, because a lot of the times as a startup, when you move fast, some things are disorganized and you want to keep it organized to enable you to keep scaling faster. And that's one of the things that none of us ever talk about as owners, because God forbid you admit that you have some parts of your organization that are disorganized. But it's the truth. As you're building and you're running, and we're all kind of paving the road while we're driving on it as business owners. That's what you have to do. You have to keep organizing and streamlining. So that's what's next. Setting us up for world domination.
Well, good luck with that. But
thank you.
Sasha, out of respect for your time, we should probably start wrapping up, and would love to hear if you have any final nuggets of wisdom for our listeners before we go.
I'll share I have so many now that I know what I know, but I'll share this one. Pride and ego get in the way. I think a lot of business owners are afraid to talk to other people and share with them where they think their weaknesses are, where they feel they're failing. And all of us feel like a failure at least a billion times a day as a founder, because like it creeps in. Like you feel like stuff is not going right, and then it's going right again. And then you're like, oh my God, that's the worst decision ever. So I would say find good mentors or good friends or good sounding boards.
Yeah.
You are not expected to know everything, but you're expected by your employees to know everything. And people look to you, your customers look to you. It's a lot of pressure, but none of us know everything. Like Elon Musk is still figuring it out in a public eye, by the way, right?
Yeah.
So and he is a proven business genius. Like whether you like him or not, you can agree he's done some stuff right. So find a good sounding board. You should be able to vomit all of your like trials and tribulations into somebody that will either just hear you out, someone that will not judge you, and someone that will cheer you on. So I think meeting other entrepreneurs either ahead of your journey or at your journey stage is important, to just find that group of people to chat. I do it on LinkedIn. I meet people on LinkedIn. I build those relationships and we talk to each other. They're never people in my space. Obviously, you're not about to disclose your wildest things to your potential competitors. But I think a lot of business owners, they are afraid to do that because it makes them sound like they don't know what they're doing or they don't have their stuff together. It's okay, y'all. Like most of us don't have our stuff together. We're all figuring it out as we go. So I just think it's really important to rely on others.
So now that you've taken the entrepreneurship plunge, will you have those conversations with your sister and dad?
We do. We do. Now it's like, I can be like, oh my God. And they're like, I know. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I know.
Now you can
So,
relate.
yeah,
Yes.
we can relate. I can relate so much more.
A lot of ups and downs.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Sasha, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's been inspirational and intriguing and interesting talking to you, and really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was great to spend the afternoon with you both too.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sasha.
for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody got a dream, let me show you all love. From an idea, working it into a startup. This the show that you need, what more could you ask for? Never know who become the CEO next door. Tune in, every episode insightful. The type of vibe you will want to subscribe to. Let's go. Hey.